In 1775, in the city of Calcutta, a Bengali man was hanged for forgery. His name was Maharaja Nanda Kumar, and he was no ordinary man. He had served as the Diwan under the Nawabs of Bengal and later as a tax collector for the East India Company. But he had made the mistake of making an enemy of the most powerful man in India at that time, Warren Hastings. This is his story, what led to his trial, and why, after 250 years, it remains one of the most controversial chapters in Indian history. During the 1770s, the East India Company ruled vast swaths of India, most importantly, whole of Bengal, the richest province in the subcontinent, and at the center of its power was one man, Warren Hastings, the first Governor General of Bengal. Maharaja Nanda Kumar or Nanda Kumar Rai was the Diwan or revenue collector of the Nawabs of Bengal, and later, with the ascendancy of the East India Company in Bengal after the Battle of Plassey, he became a tax collector on behalf of the East India Company in the regions of Bardhaman, Hooghly and Nodia. Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II bestowed the title of Maharaja on Nanda Kumar. For the East India Company, Nanda Kumar was not an outsider. In fact, he was deeply embedded in the administrative machinery built by the East India Company to run their government in India. He was a powerful tax administrator, a person who had worked very closely with the company, the Nawabs of Bengal, and even the 17th Mughal Emperor. In fact, he was a close aide of the titular Nawab of Bengal Mir Jafar and had ties with Robert Clive, the duo who had defeated the last independent Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Dawla, in the Battle of Plassey. Nanda Kumar was a first-hand witness of the shift of power from the Nawabs of Bengal to the East India Company through treachery and dirty politics. He knew how power moved and how decisions were made, and more importantly, he knew where all the skeletons were buried. In 1772, when Warren Hastings was made the first Governor General of Bengal, his powers were limited by a decision made by the directors of the East India Company. A council of 4 was appointed who had equal powers as the Governor General. The 4 men in the council were Richard Barwell, Philip Francis, General Clavering, and Colonel Monson. Francis was a bitter rival of Warren Hastings from the start. So much so that 8 years later, the duo would face each other with guns in a duel in Calcutta. More about that later. The East India Company administration quickly split into 2 factions, one led by Francis and backed by Monson and Clavering, and the other led by Hastings and backed by Barwell. Nanda Kumar had political disagreements with Warren Hastings over the reorganization of the Bengal administration after the Battle of Plassey. For this reason, he decided to align himself with Philip Francis against Warren Hastings. In 1775, Nanda Kumar made his move. Francis submitted a formal letter from Nanda Kumar before the Council of 4, in which Hastings was accused of accepting gifts and bribes of 40 lakh rupees from Munni Begum, the widow of Mir Jafar, and other royal family members. 2 days later, Nanda Kumar sent another letter to the council, in which he offered to give evidence of such activities by Warren Hastings. Although Hastings' supporter Barwell left the council in protest, the other 3 members declared Warren Hastings guilty of corruption on the basis of the documents. Now it so happened that there was an old case of forgery dated 1769 against Maharaja Nanda Kumar brought by one of his enemies, a certain Mohan Prasad. This case was suddenly brought up in trial in the newly established Supreme Court in Calcutta, presided over by Elijah Impey, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and coincidentally, an old friend of Warren Hastings. Impey and Hastings' friendship dated back to their school days in England. The trial moved quickly. Before the case of corruption against Warren Hastings could proceed, Nanda Kumar was found guilty of forgery in the trial and sentenced to hanging. Nanda Kumar was sent to the gallows on August 5th, 1775. Alexander McRae, the sheriff of Calcutta, was entrusted with the task of overseeing the execution. He writes, "He walked cheerfully to the gate and seated himself in his palanquin, looking around him with perfect unconcern. I did not observe the smallest discomposure in his countenance or manner at the sight of the gallows or any of the ceremonies passing about it." Nanda Kumar was 70 when he was executed. Among the 4 council members, Monson died in 1776. Clavering followed the next year. The enmity between Warren Hastings and Philip Francis finally culminated in a duel in 1780 in the city of Calcutta. Hastings emerged unscathed, while Francis was grievously wounded in the duel. Although he survived, he returned to England for good. With his rivals gone, Hastings was effectively left with complete control over the affairs of the East India Company. In 1782, James Augustus Hickey brought up the case of Maharaja Nanda Kumar in Hickey's Bengal Gazette, the first newspaper in India. He had to face the wrath of Warren Hastings. He was put behind bars and his printing press was seized. I have discussed more about this topic in the video on India's first newspaper, linked here. But the event would come back to haunt Warren Hastings again when he was recalled to England to face impeachment in 1785. So what did you think about this event from Indian history? Please let me know in your comments. And if you liked the video, please hit the like button. And there'll be more such videos coming up in my channel. So if you want to keep track of them, if you want to watch them, please hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.